This is Girmay Zahilay, your new King County Council member elect for District 2, and I'm dropping gems.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Big O Show. You can tell right there by the fancy suit I got on and the guy you just saw there on the screen, man. This morning, it's a pleasure to sit down with King County Executive Girmay Zahilay. How are you?
I'm doing good, and it's so good to be here because I feel like I've seen the vision from you, the work from you from the very beginning, to see you go from coming out of the uprisings and the protests in 2020 to developing a vision all the way into a building, a physical place where we can gather, where we can tell our stories authentically, and be able to walk around and see the gathering space, the community that you've been able to form. It's just beautiful to watch the journey.
Well, thank you, and welcome back. And no, you can't write your Franklin Quakers twice on the wall.
I already got it. It's still over there from 2021.
You've already got it. And man, yeah, it's been 5 years since you've been here. And I did want to acknowledge this because I was looking through the photos. And, you know, this studio here is dedicated to my father who passed away in 2023. The last time you were here on the same show with my dad.
Yeah.
August 19th, 2021. And so looking through those photos this morning brought me a lot of joy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, good stuff. Well, man, running the county is big business. There's a lot going on. But before we jump into all these lots and lots of questions that I have for you, first of all, man, tell us, what is the state of the county?
The state of the county, as I mentioned last night, is that we're living through a period of tremendous change. We're living through a time when not only do we have the first new county executive administration in 16 years, but also we're making pivotal decisions about our regional homelessness system, our regional transit system. We're having to adapt to a technological revolution where so many people are losing their jobs and industries are changing. We're seeing our federal landscape changing, where the county is losing money from the federal government and the civil rights of our residents are being threatened. And so this is a time when we really have to come together and shape what the next chapter looks like. So that's what I would say is the state of the county, a time of big change.
And for the people on the block, the county's doing good. The county's doing bad.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best.
We're doing our best.
Yeah.
We chugging along.
Yeah, no, I mentioned this last night too, but in some key metrics, the county is doing much better than it was. I showed that gun violence is down by 50% since 2023. That's not the trend is good, but we're obviously nowhere where we need to be. Overdose deaths have flattened as compared to the past few years. So those types of metrics are better than the pandemic era, but affordability. It's more expensive than ever to live here. Housing costs are out of control. Childcare costs are out of control. People feel like their civil rights are under attack. And so by some metrics, we're doing better than we were. And by other metrics, we have a lot of work to do.
Right. Well, let's start on a few topics. I want to spend the majority of my time with you on a lot of topics that are near and dear to us here at Converge. But there are topics, of course, that impact all of us.
Yeah.
And one of them that actually overlaps into us is homelessness.
Yeah.
And addressing homelessness and what you guys are going to do with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority.
Yeah. So for those of you who maybe haven't been tracking the news, the Regional Homelessness Authority was audited, and the audit found that there is financial mismanagement, accounting issues. I think it was $8 million that's unaccounted for. And over the past, 6-7 years since its inception, it's had 5 different CEOs, HR issues. And so clearly there is a lot of work that needs to be done to stabilize that organization in the short term. And so this is a really important organization. It's the organization that's responsible for moving people from the streets into stable housing, giving people wraparound services. And so we need a stable, unified organization. And so in the short term, we're increasing oversight. We're embedding a financial expert there to really control the finances there. We're making sure that there are good HR policies. And then in the long term, I don't think this is the right structure that's going to deliver the regional response system that we deserve. And so we need a regional reset, and I know that's going to require us bringing together the Seattle mayor, the Seattle council, the King County council, our service providers, our labor unions, and really charting out what comes next. So you should see some movement here in the next few weeks, but we have to move with urgency, but also carefully, because there are federal resources at risk.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it was hard enough initially 5 years ago or whatever it was to get all the other cities to buy in, because there's 39 cities right in King County, and a lot of them were skeptical from jump, and then now you've got this result here. How do you go about getting their buy-in into whatever the short-term solution is, and also long-term?
First of all, it's exactly what you just said, which is getting their buy-in. That's why I'm not making unilateral decisions here. I want to make sure we have a broad stakeholdering process where we engage all of those 39 cities, the service providers, the unions, to really shape what comes next. Because I think what happened in the last iteration with the current structure is that there were announcements made without the buy-in that's needed from the whole region. And so we're trying to avoid that this time.
Right. And when we look at what's happening right now across the county and with this homelessness, one thing, actually, let me just take a step back. It's like living in Seattle, and, love everybody across the county, but sometimes people across the county point at Seattle. They say that Seattle's burning, Seattle's crazy, Seattle's home of this and that. And they're also not recognizing that a lot of the people who end up in Seattle are their sons and daughters. Also, they mamas and even big mamas from across these 39 cities in unincorporated King County. And so it's kind of easy sometimes to sit across the water, or north of Seattle or south of Seattle, and then tell us how Seattle is burning, and not even realizing that that's your loved ones who have made it here to Seattle, because that's where the hub of the services are.
That's right. That's you pointed to it exactly. If some cities in King County have more, strict enforcement policies around people being outside when they're unhoused, those unhoused people don't just disappear, right? They're being moved from one place to another, and most likely they're coming to the places where the services are, which is Seattle. And I love that you're putting a face to this crisis, because you and me, Omari, we were raised here. I'm sure when you drive around Seattle, you see people that you went to school with. I see people that I went to school with. I see people that I grew up with in Rainier Vista or New Holly back when it was Holly Park. And I've seen all of the checkpoints in their life when intervention could have kept them from being in that situation, where they were maybe rejected by a family member, or jumped at some point, or didn't do well enough in school and didn't have the support that they needed, couldn't get a job, were abused by somebody they trusted. So these are the many faces of the crisis at an individual level that we also have to appreciate. Like you said, those are our sons and daughters and brothers and sisters outside.
Yeah, Brad Finegood over there at Public Health, I used to look at like fentanyl specifically, and people suffering from fentanyl addiction a bit differently. And Brad Finegood came here actually to the Morning Update show, and he said, Omari, that's our community, our King County community that's members. Right. He said, man, some are down and out. Some people think, they're beyond hope. but it doesn't matter. These are our King County community members, and we need to be able to show some compassion. And once Brad, it was funny because he told me that, and then like a few weeks later, it was like Mayor Harrell had a press conference with like the DEA, the feds, all this and that. They're like, which was, they're talking about they're arresting all the dealers and everything, right? And I'm like, okay. And then I was like, hey, what about our community members, though, on the streets? Where are you going with our compassion? These are our King County community members and everything else. And speaking of that, as we, and I want to be clear, in my opinion, homelessness and addiction isn't 100% tied. That's just my personal opinion.
You're right.
Because, and the reason why I say that is that when we look at homelessness here, people go for what they can see. And we see people here on the street, right here on First Avenue. You know what I'm saying? They got their Fenty lean. We see people in tents. And a lot of the obviously seen homeless that a lot of times we can deduce like, yo, man, they look like substance abuse disorder. But people don't realize that one homie who's like, hey, bro, can I stay on your couch this week? And they give you some kind of, oh, yeah, I'm going to be in town or this and that. Man, they're homeless as well. They're couch surfing.
Yeah.
There's people that are living in their car. The most visible form of homelessness that we see a lot of times is tied in, as we can clearly see, is tied in with maybe drug abuse and everything else. What is when we talk about those that are addicted and substance abuse disorder and bringing up Brad Finegood and what they do there, what's the county's position? You said that overdoses are flatline. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
For sure. First of all, I want to say the way you're framing this is a way that we don't frame enough in our political discourse. And the problem is that the problems that you're describing are diverse. They are distinct and overlapping, right? There are some people who are experiencing each of these issues on its own. They just don't have a roof over their heads. They just have substance use disorder. They just have mental health issues. They just were incarcerated. And some people are facing a combination of all of them. But when we talk about the solutions, we talk about the solutions as if they're a one size fits all. People will say, it's all treatment first. We need, sober housing for everybody, or we need this for No, we need a diverse toolkit of responses to respond to the diversity of the problem that we're seeing. So when you talk about behavioral health issues, there are some people who just face substance use disorders. There are some people who have faced substance use disorders and they're unhoused, and so they'll need a combination of responses. When it comes to the mental health and addiction crisis in our community, we need a strong, coordinated, comprehensive system that can catch people no matter where they are in facing all of those combinations of issues. So I announced at the State of the County that we're making a lot of progress on our crisis care centers, for example. If you had asked me in 2020 or 2021 before we started working on crisis care centers, if you break your bone, Omari, and you want to go to urgent care, there are plenty of urgent care clinics around King County. But if you needed urgent care for a mental health or addiction issue, there were no urgent care clinics that are open 24/7 around the region that you could just walk into. And so now we have one in North King County that's open, a crisis care center. We have a Seattle crisis care center that's going to open on Capitol Hill next year. We have a South County and East County and a youth-focused crisis care center that are in the pipeline. So we're going to have a network of crisis care centers. We have overdose prevention medicine. We have programs in our detention facilities so that people don't just get discharged after they are incarcerated, but instead are connected to the suite of solutions or services that they need to recover. And so it's continuing to build that network of services.
Yeah, big shout out to Jennifer Winslow and all those guys over there at the crisis care. We did a special with them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, we did a special with them last year talking about the crisis care. Yeah, I think that the county is kind of, it's a bellwether. Like a lot of stuff happens here in Seattle and King County and goes nationwide. Yeah. I think that like the crisis care is there. It's funny though, is like sometimes, and actually I had a conversation with Jennifer about this, right? Is that there's people be in crisis all the time, but like a lot of times we don't recognize it or we don't want to acknowledge it. And when you say crisis care center, people always envision the most extreme.
Yeah.
And there are extreme situations. But a lot of people don't realize, you know what I'm saying? They bank teller this morning is going through crisis.
100%.
The barista is going through crisis.
Yep.
The bus driver is going through crisis. And it's just at the level we're able to deal with. I think Jennifer said that crisis is basically whenever your cup is now overflowing, with issues, whenever you can't, manage things that are going on in your life. And I think that we need to, as crazy as it sounds, take the stigma out of the word crisis, and because people would be more adapt to it. Look at whatchamacallit, who the guy who killed Devon Pickett Jr. For days he was in crisis. I don't know if like a crisis care center would have been the place for it, but like we see people in crisis all the time, and I think that as a society, or even not even society, as our King County community, we're not recognizing that, like, man, these are exceptional resources that are here.
Yeah.
And, if we actually look at things and realize that so much of our neighbors, of our loved ones, the people we care about, they're just functional in crisis. That don't mean that they not in crisis.
That's right. You're absolutely right. There are so many different stages to crisis. Some people are just functioning, they're barely making it, or they're one tragedy or event away from everything unraveling in their lives. So we need to help people at every stage of this.
Yeah, and the crisis, I'll give you some props on this. I'm sure we got some video in here somewhere that we'll play. Is the crisis care center was something that you pursued, that you promised, and now that's being delivered.
That's
so
right.
I'm going to give you some props on that,
Thank you, Omari. It's something I feel very strongly about for all the reasons that you just talked about. I can't drive around the city without seeing people that I know, people that I've loved, and it's an issue that doesn't discriminate. It's an issue that everybody faces, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're on the street or in your home. It's a topic that has taken so many people from us, and we have to do much better.
All right. So one more thing, when in this segment, this section, is that you talked earlier about audits and you talked about government efficiency and everything else. It was big news last year. It's still something that's in the news right now. The department, was it Human Services, right? Over there at the county. And, I look at this, I'm going to let you actually speak, and let me give my opinion on it first, right? So I don't muddy the waters, as they say. But I think that a lot of people are aware, either a lot or a little bit, about an audit that came out, or a preliminary audit that came out, that they audited some organizations, look like CVI organizations, and what they came back with was irregularities, and there's the final audit is still underway right now. I actually went on air. You know what I'm saying? I was on here talking about it because I feel all kinds of different ways, but maybe you as the executive, who was not the executive at the time, but you as executive, man, this mess is yours. So tell me, where we at?
The mess is mine, and I've never been somebody who comes in and says, look at all this mess I've inherited and blame somebody else. I was on the council. All of us were on the council, and so our jobs are oversight. So I'm accountable, and I'm working aggressively to fix this issue. That's why one of the first actions that we took in my new administration was to put forward our Better Government Executive Order, and the direction was fix these issues immediately and make sure that they never happen again. And that's what our teams have been working aggressively toward. DCHS, the specific department that was audited for this particular audit, is now on track to meet all 10 of the audit recommendations, and anybody can go on their website and track their progress, and I think they're doing an excellent job of responding to this and building the systems that are needed to hold people accountable and protect taxpayer dollars. But in addition to that one department, I've hired an internal audit director who's going to assess the risks across all of our departments and across all of our grant programs. So all of the lessons learned from this DCHS situation, we're going to apply across all of our departments. We're also doing something that's kind of boring, but also really cool, which is called base budgeting. In usual years, like 90% of the budget will just be rolled over from one budget cycle to the next. But this time, for the first time in modern history, we're going to build the budgets up from the ground up. So we're going to take a real critical eye for every single dollar, every single program, and make sure it's producing the results that we want to see before we decide to just re-up everything again. So we have a lot of work to do, and I'm really confident that we're on track to do great work now.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I think we all want to hear that. We all want people to be accountable. You know, I have a few different takeaways from this, which now that I have the opportunity to sit with you, I'd like to share with you.
Yeah.
Is that one, I think that the county, like a lot of organizations, everything else, I think that the county, a lot of their barriers to entry were lower, and they was lower because for decades or from the beginning they was way too high. It was the chicken dinner.
Yep.
You know, black folks get invited over there to the chicken dinner. Everybody tells you how much they love you and everything else. Then they give you 500 pages of application to fill out because they know you won't do it. That's how black people get shit out of construction.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, we're building a new tower. We want all the blacks here. And then these impediments are there. And I think that the county went from these high barriers into a low barrier. You know what I'm saying? And then trying to get these funds out there. And you know what I'm saying? I think that, you know, there should have just been way more accountability, of course. But I think that what's happened here is disingenuous to the many, many organizations that show up every day that serve young people and community members in King County that have been painted with a broad brush.
Yeah.
I don't know the outcome with this group here. And I will say on the other side, on the street side, there are guys who need to do better with these funds.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? There are people that we'll see what happens. You know, I don't want to call nobody guilty on anything, but there are some people that are out there that is like, man, is this the actual proper use of the taxpayers' money? I only say that is because, like, when the county might buy advertising for Converge, believe me, we got so many checks and balances, $500 for you guys to send a check. It's so many checks and balances on us as a small black business. We're held to a high standard of every business in this county that the county deals with. Yep. And we know that we have to cross every I, dot every I, right? Cross every T. And so that's another aspect that I have of us. Like, man, we're held to a very high standard over here with anything we do with the county. Man, try getting a check out of local services. Listen, let me tell you, everything has to be right. And then the other thing that I'm going to say is on this, and I'm not expecting you, you know what I'm saying, however you want to reply or not reply at all, is I really think that, man, there's certain people who put 2 on the 10. Meaning that it's like, okay, we got some black folks over here. Let's circle this wagon and let's blow this thing up as big as we can. And we know that these issues occur across the board. We know they occur across the board, but when you talk about black folks and you talk about these things and everything else, you know what I'm saying? Because there really are accounting issues that happen, which are normal, and then there's some accounting issues that are abnormal. But that happens across the board. And so for me, the takeaway on that was that, like, well, these other organizations that are providing exceptional service, while this platform is big, they're not being acknowledged. And then the other thing is there's all other groups of people here in government where, you know what, as Big Mama used to say, something in the milk ain't clean. So I don't know. This is more of a statement than a question, but I just wanted to share my thoughts around this audit. But the main thing is that I hope you get to the bottom of this. Yep. And I will say this is me as Omari, as a citizen here of King County, I want to be very clear while I'm sitting with the executive that if anybody did misappropriate funds intended to help our young people in our community, that I hope that they'll be dealt with.
Absolutely. Any act of fraud or abuse, that individual or that organization will be held accountable 100%. And I think you're just shedding light, Omari, on the trade-offs that we have to make when we're dealing with public policy. Just to put, for listeners who might not be familiar with grant making and things like that, imagine that there is an individual or a small organization that wants to provide some services to our youth, maybe some mentoring, maybe some educational services, and imagine that they're seeking grants from King County. King County could make the barriers really high, right? We could say that we're going to go do site visits, we're going to put eyes and ears on the work that you're doing, and we're going to visit you out of nowhere. We're going to make sure that you fill out tons and tons of paperwork for every single dollar that we give you to tell us exactly what you're doing. That is one version of protecting taxpayer dollars to the maximum ability. And then what you get from 2020 to 2021 is a lot of people saying, trust community, stop putting up all these barriers on us. We don't want to fill out 1,000 pages of paperwork to get a few dollars. We don't want you breathing down our necks coming to check on our work. We want you to trust us. And then when you bring those barriers down and you do fewer site visits and you have less tracking, less reporting, then you open up the risk of some people, not all people, like you said, the vast majority of people are doing really good work for our community, but there might be that one-off person who says, oh, I found a way to abuse the system here. They're not checking on me. They're not making me fill out all this paperwork. Let me just get these dollars and keep. We have to find a way to have a balanced approach, right? We need accountability. We need oversight. We need to make sure that every tax dollar is protected, and we have to make sure that we do trust community and we don't set up barriers so that smaller organizations who are doing really good work get blocked out. And so I want people to see this as trade-offs, as nuance, as something that we have to keep working on and iterating and getting better until we find the right line. It's not a conversation of all these people are fraudulent and we have to put up all these barriers, or let's just open up the floodgates and give money to everybody. We don't deal in the extremes. We have to have nuance. We have to understand who has respect and a good track record. We have to understand who is out there doing that work and make sure that the county itself has the right infrastructure so that we're not putting that burden on smaller organizations.
Right. I talked to somebody in your office, and what our discussion was, it would begin. I think she said she was working on it. I'll leave names unknown out here, but that the county was going to hold classes. Mm-hmm. It's like some things you'll never learn if you don't sit in the class.
Yes. Yep.
And man, you know what? We got exceptional people in our community, but you know, they might not have a background in this or
That's
that.
right.
And even optics, like,
That's
hey,
right.
you know what? This is kind of ethical, but you know, optics of it, you know what I'm saying? All the way down to how to fill out your paperwork, how to report properly, and everything else. Because we should, I think those are the areas where you should be raising the bar.
Yeah.
You should be raising the bar, and the county actually has the resources to do that. It's like, listen, okay, you won your grant, congratulations. Now we need to take you to school.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because mismanagement is not always fraud. It's not always malicious. It's not always somebody abusing the system. There are oftentimes people just haven't interacted with government before and they don't know what they don't know. And so building up that technical ability, supporting people, that's absolutely part of the equation and what we're doing right now too.
All right, before we go to break, because I know this was an issue, is there anything else you want us to know about this audit?
I just want people to know that when I took this office, there were so many different issues that we had to navigate. $35 billion deficit at Sound Transit, issues at our regional homelessness authority, issues with audits of county departments. And so the reason why you might be seeing me show up more as a good governance person is because I think we need to build the public's trust if we're going to be able to do anything else, right? If I want to swing for the fences on housing and transit and all these other issues, I have to show people that King County, your regional government, is taking care of your tax dollars. So I just wanted to, because some people have reached out and said, Girmay, you're moving more like a good governance person rather than the old style of just like pure progressivism. And that's because I think we have a lot of stuff that we need to be doing to build
also,
public confidence.
You're responsible for the taxpayers' dollars
100%.
of all of King County.
100%.
I would hope that you want to move with good governance.
Absolutely. That's the top priority.
That's the expectation.
And those two things are not mutually exclusive.
No.
I think progressivism requires good governance.
Yeah, how are you going to keep funding your progressivism if you don't have good governance? See, but this was the point that I was getting at.
Yeah.
That here I am, a small black business that, man, reaches out, helps our community and everything else, and I have no problem meeting that threshold for King County.
Yeah.
Because when you guys tell me, you know what you guys tell me? My friend, we're not mailing, by the way, stop mailing checks. Man, can I get on ePay? We're not mailing your check until this is done. And guess what that forces us to do? Show good governance because we want to get paid.
Absolutely.
And so it's not far-fetched for you to hold people to a higher standard. And in holding people to a higher standard, you're actually building a pipeline to sustain this ideology and everything else that people want to achieve.
Yes, sir.
You know, my fault. Not trying to tell the executive what to do. Hey, great conversation here so far with King County Executive Girmay Zahilay. We're going to take a quick break. And by the way, these breaks right here, these aren't your regular commercial breaks. We hopped in the Wayback Machine. You're watching The Big O Show.
Number one this year is going to be the behavioral health crisis. I'm working on a crisis care centers initiative to build out places for people to go when they're having mental health or substance use disorder crises. Number two is housing and homelessness. Of course, we need to provide every type of home for every type of need that exists out there, all the way from shelter all the way through home ownership. And number three, I would say, is continuing to invest in the unincorporated neighborhood of Skyway, where we have the highest proportion of black people in the state of Washington living there. It is extremely diverse, so many languages spoken, and yet it is the neighborhood that continues to be disinvested from.
Zahilay, who was at the town hall on violence at Rainier Beach High School on January 12th, said gun violence is connected to the issues he is focused on.
The thing with these issues is that they're all intersectional. They're all connected to each other. Gun violence is absolutely connected to the housing crisis, connected to the behavioral health crisis. And so anything we can do to keep people housed and healthy, that's going to help with reduce gun violence. Whatever we can do to provide people the mental health resources that they need to thrive, that's going to help with gun violence. Whatever we can do to keep communities intact and not displaced and spread all over the place, that's going to help with gun violence.
Oh, okay. Oh, look at you. You caught me by surprise. Wait, I got caught by my own delay. Welcome back to the Big O Show. Here with King County Council Executive. I was getting ready to say member. You know, for years that was our thing.
Force of habit.
Yeah, man. How is this job, by the way? How are you liking this?
It's way different than being a council member. It's hard. It's real hard. You know, when I was a council member, I represented District 2, which is the community that raised me. I just go up and down MLK or Rainier Ave, and I'm seeing my whole district. And now I can be in Duval one day, in Federal Way the next, in Carnation, Pacific, Shoreline, hop on a boat and go to Vashon Island. That's still King County. So the scale and the diversity of the issues are so much bigger, and everything's your problem. So there's no hiding from anything. So it's hard.
Yeah, everything is definitely your problem, man. And people don't realize how big King County is, too. And that Vashon Island is the western boundary of it, and it's all the way up there, like at mile marker like 52 or something in the Kittitas County.
There was a day where I had a meeting in Federal Way and then in Duval. You know where Duval is?
Yeah, I know Duval.
All the way up in the northeast corner. I was in the car for 2 hours, and I was still in King County. So I'm just trying to give people a scale.
Yeah, no, listen. And for the numbers, real quick, maybe you can tell our audience, too, as well. Some of the numbers of King County, our population, our whatever, GDP for a county. I need to pull this just a little bit closer, too.
Yeah, King County is huge. We have 39 different cities and unincorporated areas. We have 2.3 million people. We have a workforce of 18,000 at King County government. If King County were its own state, we would be the 37th largest state. So if people are wondering what the hell is a King County executive, you can almost think of it as being the governor of a small state. You know, maybe an equivalent state is, I think New Mexico might have a similar population as King County.
Okay.
So it's kind of like being a mini governor or a mayor of a large region of 39 different cities. So as you know, we have a beautiful special region. We have one of the largest GDPs in the country. Within the U.S. And just so many different issues that we're tackling right now. And like I said before, we're at a pivotal time right now.
All right. So one of the issues, man, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this for sure. We're going to talk about gun violence. I also want to talk about participatory budgeting.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about some other comments that you made last night.
Sounds
right?
good.
And so what we just played during the break, and we wanted to play that was at your re-election rally.
Yeah.
There at Washington Hall, and you talked about, your three priorities is crisis care, homelessness, and gun violence.
Yeah.
You also talked about love for Skyway too. In there, but gun violence, and I wanted to go back here to men. Let's play this one, Eric. This is A4. This is March of 2020.
We all have to acknowledge that everyone deserves to feel safe in their community. Everybody's voice is valid when it comes to safety and gun violence. At the same time, we also have to acknowledge that the people who are most at risk for being shot and killed are young, Black, and brown people. And so we have to make sure their voices are heard the most. At the same time, they also happen to be the group of people who have the least access to lawmakers and politicians. So uplifting their voices should be a priority for all of us.
All right. So as you said right there in that segment, what you talked about was that everybody deserves safety, but young Black and brown youth are the most impacted by gun violence, so they actually deserve more of a voice and a voice to be heard. And so this was kind of, you knew there on the job. You look kind of, you look fresh.
I look
there.
like I was 19 years old in that. This job aged me.
Look, it's aged you to like 23, bro. You know what I'm saying? You're still looking good on the job. And then we caught up with you in 2021. And you came over there to the other studio on Washington Street because you wrote an op-ed in the Seattle Times where you said that we need to start treating gun violence like COVID-19 because COVID-19 had given us a blueprint. Go ahead and play that, Eric.
I want to put up this article that you wrote. Here it is. Treat gun violence like COVID-19 as a public health crisis. So with this right here, Councilmember Zahilay, you wrote it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, my whole point was that the idea that gun violence is an epidemic, that it's a public health crisis is not new. So I know some people opened up the article and were like, another article about gun violence being a public health crisis. So that's not my point. My point is not to bring out new ideas. It's that now we have a template for what it looks like when our region and our state and really our whole country takes a public health crisis seriously. What do we do when we take a public health crisis seriously? And we saw that with COVID-19. We got to replicate what we did, the level of urgency, the scale of the response. That's what we need to end gun violence.
So besides you looking like a very young man there, that was 2021. And as you said in the start of that clip, that it's like, treating it as a public health crisis isn't a new thing. People have been saying that.
Yeah.
But you said that like COVID-19 had given a blueprint.
Yeah.
Elaborate a little bit more on that and, what you started to formulate coming out of that.
Yeah. What I saw from the COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented level of coordination and an unprecedented level of resources flowing in from the federal government giving us billions of dollars of COVID relief funds to just regular meetings of every single level of government to respond to the emergency. That's what I wanted to see with respect to gun violence. And I think that gun violence doesn't get that same level of priority and attention for the issues that you described before. I think it's hyper-localized in terms of the disproportional impact on some communities. And so what I've tried to do is elevate this issue to the scale of a pandemic, which is that for some communities, it is a pandemic. Some communities are being terrorized by this issue. Some communities are losing their young people, their fathers, their daughters, people who are just sleeping in their beds and get a bullet through their door and end up dying, young people who are just riding their scooter through their neighborhood and getting shot, rideshare or Uber drivers sitting in their car and getting shot. So this is an issue that we have to address with urgency, and I talked about some of the plans that we have in my State of the County last night, but you and I don't think there's an issue that you and I, Omari, have talked about more over the years than this topic. It's a topic that really hurts every time we talk about it, because we could say so many names of so many people that we've lost, and it's such a complicated, multifaceted issue where if you spend 30 seconds talking about all of the different ways you want to address this issue, you will inevitably miss, another, thousands of ways that you could address it, and whatever you say is going to sound insufficient because everything is connected to this topic: education, behavioral health, affordable housing, public safety responses, accountability, families in their homes, how they're talking to their young people, generations of racism and disinvestment from neighborhoods. And so there are just so many things that go into this, and I want to be able to talk to you in a way that captures the full picture, and I hope we can have that conversation.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, I think that you're correct. Over the years, there hasn't been a topic that we've discussed more than this topic of gun violence. And actually, I've got one more clip here. This is 2023 from Rainier Beach. You remember the Rainier Beach town halls, and it was like with the murder of the two students earlier this year. Like, we went back to this archive because students 3 years ago were saying what they wanted. And a lot of stuff, when we looked at other tapes going to this interview, you echoed that. They're like, hey, students told me they want more late night. They told me they want more investment in activities. They want more this and that, everything else. But this was that night there at Rainier Beach 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. What's up, everybody? I'm Girmay Zahilay, King County Council member. I represent this district. I go to a lot of community meetings over the past few years. I'm going to tell you right now, I think this was the most powerful event that I've ever been to. I laughed, I cried, I got angry, I was filled with pride. I felt all the emotions in just a couple of hours. So I just want to thank you all so much for all the work that you do. Probably the most powerful thing I heard today was when Mario said that he feels safe in his neighborhood when he's at basketball practice, when he is in a safe place, which was a wise statement. And then Yusuf countered with also a wise statement where he said that you can't feel safe if there's a condition on it. You don't actually feel safe. You're saying you feel safe when I'm away from my neighborhood, which is not actually safe. And it reminded me of the fact that when you grow up in oppressive environments, when you grow up in under-resourced neighborhoods, you start to normalize oppression. You start to feel like that is a normal part of life.
Oh, and it's back up. A lot going on here in the studio. You remember being right there at Rainier Beach. Yeah. And he actually had retold that story there about Mario and Yusuf a few other times. It's 3 years later now. Yeah. And unfortunately, tragedy struck Rainier Beach earlier this year. What are your thoughts when you look back on that?
I'm just devastated. It's really difficult to look at videos like that and see all of those young people telling us they need help, telling us that they want their community to be safer, and then a few years later seeing more loss of life of young people that same age. It's just devastating. I went to the celebration of life and the gathering of communities at the bus stop. I hugged the mothers, both mothers in that situation. I spoke to the family members, the friends, and it's really just heartbreaking. And so I want to do everything in my power to address this issue. Some of the topics that we talked about at that Rainier Beach Town Hall that you just played a clip of, we've moved aggressively to build more safe spaces for young people. We just announced that we're purchasing the Skyway goal for a Skyway community center.
We wrote an article about that.
Before that, we opened a Skyway resource center for a safe place where people can get resources. We've been working to launch a youth achievement center for young people who can have a safe place to live, co-located with services. We've made sure to launch Youth Works just last week, which is paid jobs and paid opportunities for young people, because we don't want to just talk at them and tell them everything's going to be okay. We want to give them economic opportunity. We want to give them dollars in their pockets in addition to having safe places to go. And of course, I announced that I'm going to invest at least $5 million to sustain and grow the work of our Regional Office of Gun Violence Prevention.
Right there. So this is what I want to talk to you about,
Yeah.
right? This is a nice lead up, though, right? You see, I put you in the time machine. We brought you over time.
Got me all emotional.
Now we're here. We are right now. So we were fortunate enough last week to partner with Regional Office for Gun Violence Prevention, and we did together. We End Gun Violence Week here, and it was a week of. We had survivors. Of course, we had your colleagues from over there at Public Health. We had community groups. We had partners like the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, the King County Prosecutor, and then we ended with the Youth Ambassadors, which was powerful.
Wow.
Like, I mean, it was powerful. So, like, we know the work of that office very well. We work with them several times a year in communication and everything else. You said last night that the numbers show that shootings are down, murders are down. You know, we're seeing the numbers that we want to see. Now, this investment, since you're getting the results that you're wanting, do you feel the $5 million investment in that office is enough? And then also, I wasn't quite sure, are you saying that you're moving that office into the executive's office, or there's like a coordination between the two?
Let me answer the second part of your question first, which is that we have a great regional office of gun violence prevention, and right now they're doing that work in the Department of Public Health. If I want them to do more coordination across our county departments, it's hard for them to be buried in one department and do coordination work across. So I do want to bring some of that coordination function closer to the executive's office. I don't know the exact structure right now, but I do know that it has to move up to closer to me, because I want them to be able to say, hey, our buses need to be safe. Our parks need to be safe. Our public health strategies need to be involved in this. Our sheriff's office needs to be involved in this. We need to coordinate with our youth jail and the people who are there, and making sure that our young people are better rehabilitated and supported before they're discharged. That means all of our departments have to be involved, and it means all of our regional partners outside of King County, our service providers, our community members, our local cities have to be part of this. And so that regional coordination requires being closer to me in the executive's office. So I don't know the exact structure, but I wanted to point out that there is a flaw in the current structure, and so I want to change that. And then the question about, is the $5 million enough to meet the scale of this challenge? Of course not. Of course not. This is just saying that I want to make sure that that work that they're doing can continue while we go and try to find additional resources to match the scale, and also acknowledging that our gun violence prevention work doesn't just happen in a $5 million office. Like I mentioned before, gun violence prevention is crisis care centers. Gun violence prevention is affordable and safe housing. Gun violence prevention is the community center that we're launching. And so if you add all of those things, our investment in gun violence prevention is in the billions of dollars.
Right. And so you're a firm believer in that office then, in the work that they're doing?
You know Deontay really well. You know some of the people who work in that office really well. These are people who show up in community in an authentic way, who show up after a shooting like the ones that are happening in Rainier Beach. And, you know, King County's scope of work is not necessarily contracted within the city of Seattle. We're more so contracted in other parts like Skyway, White Center. But our teams still show up there. They still show up and support the families and connect them to mental health resources. And my community service teams will go and knock on the doors of all of the public schools in the vicinity to make sure the principals are coordinating and the students are getting what they want. And so absolutely, I believe in that office, and I believe more so in the people who work in that office.
All right, good stuff. We're going to take our final break. We're going to talk about participatory budgeting and Skyway, and then we're going to give you the final word. You're watching The Big O Show.
BD Panthers, what's up? How y'all doing? Today we're here launching the Devon and Kiana Pickett Scholarship Fund.
This is our way of honoring the legacy of Devon Pickett Jr. and also supporting the youth that he mentored. It's going to be $100,000 that'll go toward making this football program as accessible as possible for every young person who wants to participate.
Today we got to award the CD Panthers with a scholarship on behalf of the King County Council members Dombrowski and Girmay in the name of my husband Devon Pickett Jr., rest in peace, and myself.
People can use it to help pay for their jerseys, their equipment, their travel, their events. It's just a really great way of making sure that Devon's legacy continues to live on through a program that he really cared about.
I feel joy. You know, there's so many sad moments and times that something like this feels really good, and to peer out to all the kids' faces, and some of them don't even understand what this is, but I feel good. I feel joy and happiness and gratitude, really.
If you invest in programs like this, that gets people early. You know, you can redirect somebody's life very early on. These kids out here who are finding mentors, who are finding good role models, who are releasing their energy in a positive way, that's going to redirect people way before they get to the darkness.
Maybe one of you will be the governor someday. Bruce Harrell, our mayor, came through the program. Maybe one of you will be the mayor. Maybe you'll be the next council member of Girmay.
It means everything to this community. You know, every time I hear about youth athletics, I hear about the CD Panthers. It's really just going to attract a lot of positive energy in a time where negative energy is coming for us with all these shootings and all this violence. This is the kind of stuff that we want to promote.
All right, back out the Wayback Machine. There we were right there in up at Judkins Park that day, where the King County Council came together, donate $100,000 to CD Panthers.
That was such a beautiful segment. Thank you for being there and telling that story in such a beautiful way. Caught me right here.
Yeah, well, you know, this is your first time as executive here. And
it's my first time being invited, No,
man, listen, man. We'll discuss that. But your first time here, being everybody's first time here, we always want to make it very special for them.
Thank you. Very
you know
special.
what I'm saying? So then, like, next time you come back, we'll jump all over you.
Yep,
But this time right here, we definitely wanted to make it special for you. Speaking of special, man, we've been following something really special out there in Skyway and the participatory budgeting that's being led by local services outside of that resource center that you just talked about in Skyway. Here's a clip right here from the Personal Touch Barbershop and what they got going on.
What's up, everybody? This is Eddie. Welcome to Personal Touch and the Cutting Edge Barber Mentorship Program. It's community vibe. We got barbers, old and young barbers. We got females in here that do dreadlocks, braids. So it's kind of, for the most part, a one-stop shop. You can come bring your grandkids or your grandparents in here and get serviced. So the program, the King County Participatory Budgeting Program, is how all this came about. Originally, I just pretty much was supplying the space for us to have a informational about available funds for the community that the PB project was offering. So we had a informational at my barbershop, and while we was there, Gloria kind of was asking around everybody that came in from the community if they had any ideas about businesses or programs that we could do for the community. So I kind of I put the idea out there about a barber school. They helped me get it pushed through. We put a proposal together. The community voted on it, accepted the proposal for us to do it on a smaller scale, which is the Cutting Edge Barber Mentorship Program. And we kind of just went from there.
All right, so big shout out to Eddie and over at Personal Touch, and also, you know, your team over there at Local Services. You mentioned Gloria Briggs there in this segment. And so, like, participatory budget has been really dope because, like, we had aisle 4, we had Lamar Thompson from aisle 4, who was a PB recipient, and now this Personal Edge, the barber class for young people. Like, we're really seeing these dollars being turned into action and community. The Silent Task Force and the work that they're doing out there, man. Skyway is popping, and we're seeing that, like, PB is like funding kind of a renaissance in the area.
Absolutely. You know, this was a top priority for myself and my chief of staff at the time, Councilmember Lewis, who is now the first Black woman council member in King County's history.
Hello.
Shout out to her. But in 2020, when all of the uprisings and the protests were happening, we wanted to harness that energy and really invest it in our communities. And we wrote op-eds and we marched and we worked with the executive at the time, Dow Constantine, and we were able to get historic levels of investment in Skyway, which, by the way, is home to the highest proportion of African Americans in the entire state of Washington, 98178, shout out to them. And we were able to get $10 million for the first ever community center, $2 million for a resource center, $6 million to expand public transit, and $10 million to launch a participatory budgeting program, which we've renewed a couple of times now. And the idea behind that is the theme that we talked about earlier today, which is trust community. Nobody can tell you more about the needs in a community than the community itself. And so rather than having a budgeting process that goes through a government that can feel far away, why don't we have a budgeting process that is voted on and controlled by people who live in that neighborhood? And so every time this program re-ups, we have a pot of $10 million, and we ask people in urban unincorporated King County like Skyway to vote on their favorite projects. You just showed a clip of Barber School, which has been one of the projects that has been funded. You mentioned the Silent Task Force, which does so much good work, including food security work, and now they're launching their own building or hub in that neighborhood. We've seen all kinds of capital projects and resource fairs that are happening in Skyway. But you're right, Skyway is popping because of an intentional collaboration with the community members and advocates that are there. And as long as I'm executive, they're going to have a partner in participatory budgeting.
I believe you when you say that, and why I believe that is I got you on tape in 2019 talking about Skyway. And so it's good to see that as your career has risen here, that you've never forgotten about Skyway and so many other neighborhoods that are there. Hey, I'll be honest with you, Mr. Executive. People love coming here because we always get them out on time. I'm looking at the clock over there, so we're going to wind it down. But as promised, sir, that's your camera right there. I want to give you the last word to speak to the good people here at King County.
I just want to thank Omari, the people at Converge, for having me here. It has been a crazy 6 months on the job. You can imagine that all of the issues that we're facing right now, from affordability to public transportation to public health to public safety, we're at an inflection point right now. I mentioned it in my State of the County last night, but right now is a time of tremendous change. We're making really pivotal decisions about the future, and I would ask everybody to just get involved. You know, reach out to our office, work with your local city council members, your state representatives, your community organizations, your media, and define what comes next, because the future is not something that happens to us, it's something that we define together. So let's work together to pass on a better future for the next generation.
All right. My guy, Girmay. That was probably one of them slogans. So.
I got it stuck in your head. That was the goal. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's a great moment here. I think that we're able to kind of reflect and even see each other's growth. That, you know, we met there on 18th and Jackson and Black Dot, and I believe I was your first sit-down interview after you were elected, but before you were inaugurated. And you came over there to Black Dot, man, and starry-eyed and everything else.
Starry-eyed and baby face.
Yeah.
Now I got all these wrinkles. And
well, you know, you had big dreams and big ambitions, and what's good to see is that now 7 years later, man, the light is still in your eyes, and your ambition and your dreams of what can be for our county are bigger than ever. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Look, we're getting ready to get out of here, man. It's a busy, busy day today. You guys tap back in at 9 o'clock tonight. There we go. Yeah, put me up on screen. 9 o'clock tonight, where we got Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes and we got the Seattle City Attorney Erica Evans. So until then, peace.
This is Girmay Zahilay, your new King County Council member elect for District 2, and I'm dropping gems.